15 scary hybrid animals that actually exist. We've all seen lions, tigers, and bears, but most people haven't seen an animal that contains DNA of all three. Certain animal species can be interbred and procreate strange-looking hybrid animals. Today, we'll be taking a look at 15 of the most scary hybrid animals. Number 15, Liger. While we were all laughing as Napoleon Dynamite was drawing pictures of the mythical Liger in his notebook, scientists were laughing at us because the Liger was very real. It's one of the most well-known hybrids to exist, but don't expect to see one on the hunt in the savannah. This artificially created beast only exists in the zoos and sanctuaries that have birthed them. And as the name would suggest, they're the product of a male lion mating with a female tiger. But the kicker here is that these animals grow to be much larger than either of their parents. Number 14, Jaguar. Lions are scary enough in their own right, and so the thought of combining them with a jaguar is downright terrifying. Both of these animals are at the top of the food chain and stalk their prey before going in for the kill. And when you combine these two apex predators, you get the ganglion, a product of an incredibly selective breeding system. The ganglion is incredibly rare and will always be birthed at an animal sanctuary. But one of the most famous jaguars lived in the Bear Creek Sanctuary in Ontario, Canada. Number 13, roller bear. When you're camping, the last thing you want to run into is a grizzly bear. If one of these things takes a liking to you, things probably won't pan out so well. So what would happen if one of these giant predators had their genes crossed with their polar cousins? Well, then you've got a roller bear on your hands. The name may be silly, but the roller bear is not to be trifled with. And unlike previous entries, these are more likely to turn up in the wild than in a zoo or sanctuary. Back in 2006, an odd-looking bear was shot in the Canadian Arctic. And after some DNA testing and plenty of head scratching, it was confirmed that this was, in fact, a hybrid animal. Number 12, Zonkey. A Zonkey is not a zombie donkey, but the fact that this hybrid animal exists is creepy enough. When you mix a zebra with a donkey, you get the strange cocktail that is the Zonkey. And because both animals are equine, breeding two successfully is pretty easy to do. But the chances of a zebra and a donkey falling in love with each other in the wild are pretty low, so you can bet that any Zonkey in existence is a product of both science and selective breeding. And luckily, much like its parents, the Zonkey is anything but deadly, unless killing somebody with cuteness is a thing. Number 11, humpless camel. If you're lucky enough to see a camel in person or even ride one, the first thing you're going to notice is the hump. But what about humpless camels, also known as camels? Humpless camels are the product of a camel breeding with a llama. While you may not realize it, llamas and camels aren't too far from each other in the gene pool, so this hybrid animal isn't as rare or tough to create. This is an interesting animal because while it may look like a small camel, you'll immediately notice the hump is missing. Number 10, beefalo. Humans love beef. We love burgers and steaks, maybe a little too much sometimes, and it can feel like there aren't enough cows to satiate our appetites. So naturally, scientists are always thinking of ways to beef things up, which is why they created the beefalo. The product of a human-led breeding program, you get a beefalo when you mix a male cow and a female bison. And unlike some of the other hybrids we've seen, the history of the beefalo goes back a few hundred years. Number 9, henny. If you thought the Zonkey was one freaky hybrid animal, then just wait until you hear about this one. The henny is a product of a match made anywhere but heaven, a female donkey mating with a male horse. And so the henny is essentially the opposite of a mule and looks much smaller than its well-known cousin. But instead of being a smaller, more demure hybrid animal, this one is strong, really strong. Hennies have some tough legs, so despite their size, they can give you just a little more bang for your buck than the average pack animal. Number 8, zoo. Sure, a lot of hybrid animals are the products of lad creations and the want for newer zoo attractions. But then some are made out of necessity, and that's exactly what the zoo is. It's what you get when you mix a yak with a domestic cow, and it's easily one of the most useful hybrids around. The zoo has become all the rage amongst farmers in the hills of Mongolia and Tibet, as they make not only excellent beasts of burden, but they also become a bit of a delicacy, offering the best of both worlds when it comes to meat. Number 7, spider goats. Okay, you've heard of Spider-Man, but what about spider goats? Spider goats are very real and a new addition to the world of living oddities, created by science. But instead of swinging from building to building and saving the city once a week, all these goats do is produce milk that contains spider silk. But because these goats have had their DNA spliced with the golden orb spider, the silk from the milk can be extracted and used to make all kinds of amazingly strong materials like parachutes, fishing lines, and even body armor. Number 6, wolfen. Alright, this next entry of wacky hybrids is probably one of the rarest in the world, which is saying a lot and probably one of the coolest too. The wolf is what you get when you cross a female bottlenose dolphin and a male false killer whale, which is a member of the dolphin family and not an actual killer whale. Just imagine what that would look like. But the wolfin is a super cool hybrid that does exist in the wild, and more people have been seeing them, although it's still far and few between. Number 5. Geep. Not to be confused with the four-wheel Grand Cherokee, the geep is a funny little hybrid animal made when a sheep and a goat successfully procreate. But that pairing doesn't always work out, and many geeps are never carried to term and come out as stillborn. So like some previous list entries, the geep is a rare find. So if you do manage to catch a glimpse of one, consider yourself to be incredibly lucky, because these little guys are cute as hell. Number 4. Green sea slug. Claiming the number 4 spot on this list of hybrid animals is probably the most unusual yet. It's none other than the green sea slug. This slug is a strange little beast, incorporating the genetic material from the algae that it eats into its DNA. So talk about you are what you eat. It's one of the few animals on Earth with this characteristic and floats about in the oceans looking like a big green plant. But because the slug feeds on plants, it uses photosynthesis to create its nutrients as well, which is what gives it its bright green color. Scientists have even called it the emerald green Elysia. Number 3. Tegan. Very similar to the Liger, the Tegan has the same parents, only this time the roles are reversed. The Tegan is the epic offspring of a male tiger and a female lion or lioness. But it's amazing how, despite having such similar parentage, the Tegan looks so different from its gender-swapped counterparts. These hybrid animals are gorgeous, with their light tan stripes and a nice white underbelly, all topped off with a big mane and spotted head. And as you could probably guess by now, there's no way that a tiger and lion are mating in the wild. Tigers are incredibly solitary, with their domains spanning for miles and miles, and lions mainly stick to their pride. Number 2. Lipan. Ligers and Tegans and Growler bears, oh my. And if you thought those were freaky hybrids, then just wait until you see this one. When a male leopard successfully mates with a female lion, you get the Lipan. These hybrids are animals that are rare, with only a handful ever to exist, all of whom were bred in captivity. The Lipan has both a unique and beautiful appearance and looks like something Hercules came across during his 12 labors. The Lipan has the head of a lion, a beautiful mane, deadly jaws and all, but with the spotted body of the leopard. Number 1. Killer bees. We'll bet you didn't know that killer bees are hybrid animals. That's right, these horrifying little fuzzy buzzing creatures are the product of human interference. Created back in the 1950s, scientists were putting their heads together to increase the world's honey production. So they bred a few different species of bee. They took the typical honey bee and mixed it up with the African bee in a lab in Brazil. The result was a big bee with a nasty attitude that was supposed to live out its days in a controlled environment. Did you like it? Tell us what you think of the video in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting videos.